Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Angelo Gomez, producing another capsule for the Research Consortium in Argosy University. So welcome. Today's topic is how to construct a research design. And perhaps this is one of the most challenging questions for beginner researchers, what to do and how to do it. Much can be said about this, so hopefully within 30 minutes I'm able to provide you with an understanding of what this is and what it does. So this presentation is divided in three sections as usual. The first part is the definition and explanation of research design, then the characteristics of research design, the types of research design that you can find, and the third part is how to construct and identify the best research design for your study. So first of all, what is a research design? In lay terms, for those who are beginner researchers, we can say that a research design is a model by means of which a research study is carried out. And a research design is not only the description of what the study does, but also includes the philosophical stance where the study comes from, the knowledge base from where the study springs out or begins, and at the same time the paradigm under which the study is being carried out. So allow me to explain. A research design often may be seen as a model, a figure with squares, rectangles, and formats. That says what comes first, and second, what influences the study, what elements come within the data collection, data selection, and eventually how the information is processed in order to obtain the results, the findings, or the outcomes. But it's more than that. A research design not only is the figure, which usually is a figure, it has to do with the philosophical stance. And this is something that often is overlooked by beginners researchers. What does it mean, the knowledge that I'm trying to construct? And I'm going to be using and referring to a book by Creswell, which is called Research Design, 4th edition. Something that people tend to overlook in terms of a research design is the worldviews. What is my worldviews? Creswell talks about something really important that I think the taxonomy of these worldviews. He divides four of them, and he divides them in four: positivism, constructivism, transformative, and pragmatism. Post-positivism is usually the one that we see the most even in quantitative research, the notion that through quantitative we can create sort of a constructive narrative for what we are studying. Constructivism is intrinsically qualitative. That means reality is constructed by means of language, and language that is created and co-created with other individuals. Transformative, which is very common nowadays in action research. We do something, we investigate something in order to produce a change, a transformation in the outside world. Another one is pragmatism. We do something in order to get something that is concrete, something that it will help us to do something better, faster, bigger, to decrease something negative, or to transform something. So it serves a purpose. So we tend to see the world in those four formats. Qualitative also, if we, and Creswell does not discusses that, but it could also be in terms of comprehension, just for the sake of comprehending a phenomenon such as phenomenology, which might have somewhat escaped the classification of Creswell. So what is it? Very simple. Qualitative research invites the researcher to describe a phenomenon, and sometimes to describe the evolution of the phenomenon, and that will be grounded theory. Whereas in quantitative, by means of quantifying a phenomenon, by means of accounting for a phenomenon, we are capable of being able to measure, account, and attest for a phenomenon. So what does it mean for a research design? A research design invites us to look at a possible study, the one that we propose, in a way that has an outcome. And in order to reach that outcome, which could be quantification of something, the discovery of something, or the description of something, based on depending on the theoretical paradigm we use. So first of all, the beginner researcher needs to understand, number one, what is it that I want to do? Do I want to transform something? Do I want to test something? Do I want to develop something? Or do I want to understand something? Second, what are the tools or the instruments that I need to use for my study? Tools such as a test or an instrument to measure something such as stress, depression, acculturation, or an instrument such as the video recording of a scenario, or maybe a scale that allows me to measure a certain phenomenon. We could also, in the qualitative format, such as phenomenology, we can refer to communication, oral communication that will allow us to get stories, anecdotes, and explanation of how an experience is lived, particularly for those who have been part of that experience. So when we talk about a research design, we talk about plan of action that is exemplified, explained, and drawn in a text for the reader to understand the historical, analytical, and the protocol of a study. So some students have challenges trying to determine what is it that they want to do. Often is the case that the students or beginners researchers have a topic of interest, such as women in jail, individuals with dual diagnosis, or maybe a population, African Americans, a type of individuals, an LGBT individual, or a particular kind of people, let's say children from foster care homes or raised at foster care homes. That usually is what drives them towards research, but that does very little for them to define the type of study that they need to do. A research design would be to look at any of those interest topics of interest, or potential population, source of population for the study. A research design would be, what is it that I want to do, how I want to do it, for how long I want to do it, by means of what I want to do it, how will assess, evaluate, measure, assess, describe, explain, analyze, expose, or show the information I collect and the information I process, or data in the quantitative format. And eventually, how that information will be presented and what implications the information, the findings, the outcomes, or the results that I obtain by means of that study can be interpreted as a meaningful explanation about what I have proposed to do or what I have uncovered by means of a study. In the quantitative format, we propose to do things, usually by means of an hypothesis. An hypothesis usually that is in reference to cause and effect. In qualitative, we intend to uncover, expose, or show certain phenomena. A phenomenon often referring to a human lived experience. So, in summary, for the last part of this presentation, before we go on to examples and types of research designs, a research design is a model that describes the process of research the stages of the research, the means by which the research is carried out, how the information or the data is obtained, and how it will be presented, along with the implication of what is uncovered, discovered, the outcome, or the results of the study. It is often useful for the reader, the audience of a study, quantitative or qualitative, to see a model. This is why I strongly suggest to design something that visually, in addition to the narrative, shows how the study is carried out. What is the philosophical stand? What is being done? How is it being done? What is being, or how it is the information or the data processed, and what are the outcomes or the revelations that the study produces. Something that is also very important is to frame the study within a certain paradigm or a certain approach. Research sometimes can be eclectic, but it's important to abide by a certain line of thinking that provides validity to the type of study that we carried out. There is literature for quantitative in multiple forms: descriptive, inferential, uh, or qualitative, such as case studies, phenomenology, narrative inquiry, ethnography, and am I missing something? Case study, narrative inquiry, grounded theory, phenomenology, and case study. The five approaches that uh, Creswell suggests. But what is important about abiding by the approach is also abiding by a methodologist, someone who is recognized in the field that can provide us the organization that we may not have in terms of a certain tradition or approach to follow. For beginner researchers, then the main task is not only identify a topic of interest, but also present a plan of action that elaborates on the specificity of the steps of the study, by means of which there is a classification, a taxonomy, and a chronological order on how the study is being done. That not only is useful for the planning of the study, but also for the explanation of the outcomes of a study. So since this presentation is about uh, research design and what it does, the focus here is to help beginner students to understand that a research design is crucial for the success of a study, but also for the understanding of such a study. In addition to abiding to a tradition or approach or a paradigm such as quantitative, qualitative, or mixed method, in addition to providing an explanation of our worldviews and the purpose, therefore, of a study, um, the researcher needs to show the types of model that he is using. For instance, even though in quantitative there is such a thing as pre and post test, which is a type of research design, just mention it not only is useful, but it's not enough. The researcher also has to explain how that particular type of research design is more suitable than others. It happens sometimes that some studies describe what type of research design is being used, as I said before in the example of pre and post test, but they fail to explain what a pre and post test does compared to other forms of analysis, such as just the outcome of a test, such as a true experimental study. Um, and that kind of takes away from the study its validity, its value, and the notion that other options were considered and evaluated to be um, viable for the study that the researcher wants to do. The other thing that is really important in constructing a research design is abiding by the current or past literature. It is often a challenge when reading a study that we see a model of what steps have been taken in order to justify the outcomes or the findings of the study. However, while the model is presented and may be very well organized in terms of the graphs and the lines and the projection of first, second, third, and last, what the model lacks is the connectivity with the research, the current research, and that should never happen. For instance, a student who wants to measure the effectivity of a service learning experience and uses an instrument to measure the understanding of social justice or advocacy before and after the use of a service learning activity might obtain results that are indicative of, by means of a use of a practical, pragmatic activity, the students appear to be more engaged at the end, or more engaged than the ones that do not have such activity in terms of social advocacy. However, by not connecting it with the literature, how do we know that service learning is part or a trend in the preparation of that kind of professional? Or how or what kind of service learning is being used? Within every tradition, every approach, every theoretical model, there are different versions. And just having a well delineated, a structural model that a reader can see about a study, what may be missing from that is the connection with the literature that justify the use of that particular approach or that particular instrument or that particular, in the case of the quantitative study, tool to assess the study. And now here we come a little bit more philosophical. What is right? What is wrong? What is suitable? Right is all the things that allow to provide clarity to the reader, particularly those who have not been involved in the study and who do not know the nuances of the study. What is wrong? Whatever is missing from a complete explanation, understanding, and connection of a study to the field that it comes from and to the audience for whom it is presented. And what is suitable? All the elements that contribute to the clarity of a study, the understanding of a study, and the support of a study. And if they don't, then they shouldn't be there. Otherwise, the text becomes extremely long, longer than the audience interest, or larger than the audience interest to read the text. So there are kind of certain decisions that need to be made in order to construct a research design. So a research design is more than just talking about a true experimental, quasi-experimental, pre and post test, and the like. But rather, a research design, as Creswell mentioned and other scholars, it's something larger than a specific model, a graphical model or a narrative of the stages, components, and elements of a research study. I would like to conclude on this presentation with some suggestions, because the topic today is how to choose. Whenever someone decides to do a study, particularly doctoral students, they need to make a decision about what is it within the topic or field that they want to do. Try to make one objective as the goal for your dissertation or your study. While it's simplistic, it brings more of a control over what you will do and how you will do it. Second, make a decision about what it is that you want to do. And that's what I brought the notion of the worldviews. Do you want to change the world? Transformative. Do you want to dig deeper that the numbers might tell you about something? Post-positivism. Do you want to dialogue with individuals who are part of the group or the phenomenon that you're interested in order to better understand that experience, constructivism? Or do you want to learn something that is useful for others in the future who are part of that community or who use that approach that you're interested in promoting or analyzing? So what is it that you want to do? Second, in order to develop an effective research design, what are the steps that you will take throughout the study and the elements that are that make up the study that you're going to do? It's important to have that clarity, but at the same time that specificity for the study to be successful, and not only in terms of the result, validity and reliability, or truthfulness in the qualitative of the study, but also of the audience. What has been done, how it was done for me to accept these findings, outcomes, or results. And lastly, connect your plan of action, which is your research design, to the literature. Not only in terms of the approach that you go about it, but also how the study is connected to a field. In this case, for most of us, is the counseling profession, but specifically to the kind of approach that you are using. If you're testing a model of effectivity for counselors, if you are trying to understand a population, how that population relates to the counseling profession, and what literature is um, present at the moment to justify, to describe, to exemplify the population, the phenomenon, or the instrument that you are using, testing, or trying to find out more. And as a last piece of advice for beginner researchers, create something that is logical, something that is comprehensible to others, and be humble about how much you can actually do and then be able to explain. And I conclude with that. Some students have ideas of doing certain studies, but they are so ambitious that the study in itself, it's difficult to carry out. But the writing of the study is what it becomes overwhelming. And let me give you an example of a qualitative nature. There is a student who wanted to do analysis of service learning. Initially, she wanted to do service learning across a field, and that was too much, the counseling students at the master's level. Then within a class, that became very manageable, how a service learning experience is done. But then there were two decisions to be made. One, for whom? For the participant, the students, or also for those who teach service learning, the instructors, the professors. And third, the audience, those who were recipients of the service learning experience. While all these elements are important, and there is valid consideration to know each one of the recipients, participants, or providers of such approach, which is service learning, doing such a study would have been tremendously overwhelming and taxing. And obviously, it could have not been done, or could have been done, but while it could have been done, it would have taken many years of writing for that student to do it, to collect, explain, and justify the three perspectives. So eventually, what she did is only to analyze the service learning experience for the participant, the students over one single class. And while that is very limited, how do students of a counseling program understand social justice by means of a service learning experience? Leaves out the professors, leaves out the recipients, leaves out the administrators, leaves out the philosophy of the profession. Eventually, it's easier to write about that. And that's why there's something called further research is suggested as a key phrase, a catch-all phrase at the end of many studies. An example of a quantitative study. There was another student who wanted to measure the effects of disaster preparation for an institution, a religious institution, both for the participants They're all members of the church, the administrators of that church, the individual for whom those services were aimed, and the community at large, where those churches were closely connected. That would have been an overwhelming amount of data and different sources of data. And the level of statistical sophistication would have been quite extensive. And that proved to her to be undoable. After a year of embarking in such a journey, she realized that the amount of data she was collecting and the difficulty to collect each one of those elements was too much. While the research design and the model that she presented was very convincing and well organized, for different sources of information, for different processes of data collection and processing, and four different outcomes of data and information obtained, and the correlation of all those results in a statistical analysis. It seems quite organized, but in terms of technical or human power was overwhelming. Therefore, eventually she only took one element of that study. So what do we learn about a research design? A research design is not only the graph that is usually presented or recommended for a study. It's not only the classification of the different models such as quasi-experimental, experimental, true experimental, pre and post test, etc., etc., but also it has to do with the philosophy that initiates the study. It also refers to abiding to a tradition of a study. The theorists or methodologies that have written about this. And finally, the doability of a study. A research study not only needs to be logical, organized, and systematic and sequential, but most importantly, doable in the final reduction of the narrative of the study. A narrative that while may be limited, it is doable for beginner researchers. And since these presentations are for doctoral students, what the doctoral students can do, or master students can do, within a restricted amount of time. That is also a component within a research design. Thank you very much. My 30 minutes is have concluded, and if you have any question, please, you can reach me. I hope that these sessions are helping you out. One more time, I suggest to read Research Designs, Qualitative, Quantitative, and Mixed Methods Approaches, 4th edition by John Creswell, and the publishing company is Sage. I'm Dr. Angelo Gomez in Argosy University. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.